Hey, what's up? Silas here. I'm going to be reading the Nunes Memo. This is the memo being released it's just been released in the United States of America about how the FBI went about starting this whole Russia investigation of the Trump administration. So this has something to do with FISA, which is the FISA. I think FISA. It's like it should be FISA, right? Because it's like FISA, Visa. You say Visa, so is it FISA or is it FISA? Anyway, it's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. So as it said in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, it's mostly about surveilling foreign influences. Now, when you do this, somebody, Stefan Molyneux, and other people have said this about the government things. Whenever there's a government program, whatever it says, pretty much just expect it to do the opposite, and then you won't be surprised of the actual like event when the thing actually happens and the opposite thing comes out. If that was your expectation from the beginning, you won't be surprised. So anyway, so Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. They're saying this was used to illegally surveil a political candidate with the intentions of derailing the political person's chance to into the presidency. And Donald J. Trump got in anyway, but this memo came out, and for some time, the people who have seen it have been like, this is bad, this is damning, this is going to be a really damaging thing. Some people who are in support of releasing it, not in support of releasing it, are saying, okay, this is going to really question the actual people's confidence in the FBI. But the thing is, if this thing is, the FBI is a Federal Bureau of Investigation, for people who don't know. It's like the main kind of intelligence agency, one of the main intelligence agencies. The FBI and the CIA kind of are the top cats, but the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, I think that's more of the spies and international security, and they come with the NSA, which is the National Security Agency. So these are the main kind of secretive investigatory agencies in the United States of America, and then there's a bunch of other alphabet soup type things that work with them. That's my general knowledge of it. There's a lot more information if you guys want to know more about that. But for the Nunes memo, you have to know that this is mostly discussing what the FBI went about to actually get into the investigation. And right now, I think the guy Mueller is a special investigator who's in charge of checking on this Russia collusion to see if Russia did collude with the Trump campaign somehow to help him become president. Now, one thing just in general about this, why am I reading this? Why am I concerned about this? I don't really think I'm going to find out anything in this that's surprising. And in that one video, I talked about how people are in a bell curve in everything, in interests, and in this case, politics. So people in the political right, it's my right, okay, this is your right. Should I go yours? Okay, my right. People in the political right, 33% are not even going to read this. 33% of the political left are not even going to read this. It's just not an issue. It's not going to change how they think about anything politically. So why even bother to even start reading it or anything? Then I think 22% on either side are going to read it, and then they're going to be like, okay, we kind of know this information and we're not really that surprised, or yeah, this is kind of what I expected. I'm still not surprised, or it's not going to change me. I think it's a nothing burger. On the left, they'll mostly say that. 22% on the right will be like, yes, this is what I thought it was going to be, and this is actually something, but I'm really not really expecting anything to happen. It's like whatever. Then 11% in the middle, I guess you can throw that even 1% in there. 11% in there will be like, okay, something's going to happen. These are people who are kind of in the middle. Some of that 11%, 5.5 may lean left mostly, 5.5 might lean right mostly, and these are the people who might sway either way. They might be like, oh yeah, 10, the people on the right were actually just, this is a nothing. And then they'll go more towards the people on the left. The people on the left will be like, okay, this is actually something to worry about. And then they'll go that side. And then I don't know what that 1% will do that's left over. But for me, the most important thing is what's going to happen after this. A previous memo that I read was the Google memo by James Damore. And with that situation, I was like, I'm glad that he released this. I'm glad that Google fired him, because what's going to happen after this? It's going to put this information out there, and then what's going to happen? He's probably going to sue them. They're probably going to settle out of court. You're probably going to get a lot more awareness about this. And that's what happened. Just recently, the final class action lawsuit actually finally started out. I still think they're going to settle outside of court, but just the entire thing, and I might come back and kind of do like a short overview of it, but that that class action lawsuit is, I think, like 60 pages or something. This memo is only going to be 6 pages. I'm going to go over it. But just as I said with the Google memo, it's good that it was released because the information is out there. And the important thing is what's going to happen after. The information is out there, then what's the legal ramifications going to be after this happens? Is Google going to be held accountable for what they did? Because a lot of people, when they discriminate in that kind of way against certain people, those people get legal ramifications. Companies get sued, money gets paid out, GoFundMe campaigns get started, like boycotts happen and things like that. Didn't happen yet for Google, but to see the language, just from what I read in that class action lawsuit, I'd seen this language about people saying, I'm black, I was discriminated against, this is my lawsuit against this company. I've seen people do projects and do boycotts and have this kind of language in there. So it was kind of interesting seeing it being written, but the defendant, the person who was discriminated in this case, was male, white, conservative, and that was something odd. So I think that was a good thing. That was some of what I was saying is going to be good from that. So with this Nunes memo, for me, it's seeing if an actual crime, if actual wrongdoing is established in this document. It's not about whether you believe it or not. It's just a simple thing. It's just a simple document. Did this stuff happen? Can you prove it happened? If you can prove it happened, what's going to happen after it? What are the crimes that are going to, what's going to be the ramifications of this thing? So as I did with the Google memo, I'm going to read a paragraph and then I'm going to kind of discuss some of what I think about this. And one more thing before I start. This guy, Fire and Fury was this book by this writer. He was spending like a year in the White House and he just wrote this thing off of what people were saying and kind of inferred things. And he even came out and said it's not really that factual. But you have a lot of people saying, yeah, we know that book's not factual, but it's still important to read because it tells us a lot about Trump. And a lot of those very same people are automatically, even before this memo was released, they're saying it's fake, Nunes made it up, all these other people made it up, it's nothing, it shouldn't even be released. So that's the double standard there that I don't really get. But anyway, so into the memo, we're going to be reading this memo, and then I'm going to be, as I said, talking about what I think the memo says, paragraph by paragraph, and let's get into it. The White House, Washington, February 2nd, 2018. The Honorable Devin Nunes, Chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, United States Capitol, Washington, D.C., 20515. Some of these things, zip code, you just say the numbers, sometimes you say 20. I had a situation where one of my friends, I was with somebody I was living with, one of my roommates, my flatmate, and somebody asked me for the zip code, and then I said the zip code. I was like 106 and 06, and the person was like, why don't you just say 10606. I was like, no, for some reason sometimes I just say the number. But anyway, back into this. Dear Mr. Chairman, on January 29th, 2018, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, hereinafter the committee, voted to disclose publicly a memorandum containing classified information provided to the committee in connection with its oversight activities. The memorandum, which is attached to this letter, as provided by Clause 11G of Rule 10 or Rule X of the House, I think it means 10, Roman numeral 10, of the House of Representatives. The committee has forwarded this memorandum to the President based on its determination that the release of the memorandum would serve the public interest. So this is a good thing, and this is one of the positives I think about the United States of America. The fact that something can happen iffy politically, and it still has that kind of idea where it's like people still truly think that people can be held accountable. And I think there's still a lot of hope there that people can actually be held accountable. If this happens in a developing nation, like here in Kenya, as I've mentioned in some recent videos, there's some issues going on with political opposition. They had some mock inauguration for the opposition party. He put himself in, Raila Odinga, the opposition leader, put himself in as people's president, and a lot of the people some of the people that were involved in this are now being arrested. The two news stations were stopped from broadcasting television and radio of this event. And those news stations are still not back on. It's February 2nd right now, and this happened 3 days ago on the 30th of January. So back into this. The Constitution vests the President with the authority to protect national security secrets from disclosure. As the Supreme Court has recognized, it is the President's responsibility to classify, declassify, and control access to information bearing on our intelligence sources and methods and national defense. See example the Deputy of Navy versus Egan, 484 U.S. 518, 527 in 1988. In order to facilitate appropriate congressional oversight, the executive branch may entrust classified information to the appropriate committees of Congress, as it has done in connection with the committee's oversight activities here. The executive branch does so on the assumption that the committee will responsibly protect such classified information consistent with the laws of the United States. You see right here, this is some things. Some processes are just lawful. Right now, part of the reason that this strife is happening in Kenya is the initial election in August 8th was contested. The Supreme Court said it was legally not a valid election. Then by the laws it said, okay, you have to have the next election in 30 days after it if it's a contested one. The leader of the opposition party, Raila Odinga, said, unless we change the process, the way it was done, they're just going to rig it again. And that's a good point. But legally, by law, you had to go through a certain process for you to actually get to the point where you can contest the election, where you can say, okay, I'm not going to actually run. We still have to have the IABC thing there. And then now there was things involved, like some judges who were supposed to be there for the hearing of this case, the contesting of the second run-up election even being legal. They decided to just not show up. But the people who did show up, the head court, think the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in Kenya, the head judge, he decided, I have to follow the law. The judges that was presiding over this could not actually listen to the case because there was nothing there. And that's the thing. If you don't have the rule of law, then what do you have in a society, in a civilization? And there's ways to get around it, but that's what I'm curious to see with something like this memo. Once you get to the memo, what is actually revealed in it, and is there actual material where you can say, this is illegal, this should not have happened? And if that happens, what is going to happen after it? Are the people going to get away with it? Is there going to be these kind of ins and outs where people just, for example, the judges decided, we're not going to show up, but you needed a quorum of judges in order to listen to the case. So since a few judges decided to just not show up for work that day, they couldn't actually do it. The case lapsed. The election occurred without Raila Odinga running. Now Uhuru Kenyatta is legally the president of Kenya right now. So yeah, back into this. The committee has now determined that the release of the memorandum would be appropriate. The executive branch across administrations of both parties has worked to accommodate congressional requests to declassify specific materials in the public interest. However, public release of classified information by unilateral action of the legislative branch is extremely rare and raises significant separation of powers concerns. Accordingly, the committee's request to release the memorandum is interpreted as a request for declassification pursuant to the President's authority. So you see here, I think it's good to set up what's happening here. People had objections to this being released. I do understand there's questions of classified material coming out there and it being a danger to the people, how it's handled. But these classified material kind of questions are a lot of the things that people on the left were like, yeah, it doesn't matter if Hillary Clinton had her server somewhere else. I know that material might have been classified, might have been declassified, but it's not that important. It's stuff that you knew, who actually found out this information. They were very lackadaisical about that, but now with this one, some people on the left, a few people I've seen, are like, yeah, no, this is classified material. You shouldn't release this information. It's not good. It's not good. No. A lot of Democrats are like, no, we can't let this out. This is material that needs to be protected and kept away from people, kept away from prying eyes. How can you even suggest we should let this out? But when it was Hillary Clinton's server, meh. Anyway, back into this. The President understands that the protection of our national security represents its highest obligation. Accordingly, he has directed lawyers and national security staff to assess the declassification request consistent with established standards governing the handling of classified material, including those under Section 3.1d of Executive Order 13526. Those standards permit declassification when the public interest in disclosure outweighs any need to protect the information. The White House review process also included input from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the Department of Justice. Consistent with this review and these standards, the President has determined that declassification of the memorandum is appropriate. So this is again, I think, just setting up that yes, some considerations have been taken, some protections have been done, everything is by the book, this is how it's done, and we're following it. And I think this is again a thing that people in the United States of America, I think, care for. This is something that I think any civilization needs. The rule of law is what binds us together when we have a lot of things that there's valid reasons to mistrust people that you don't know. People aren't afraid of the dark for no reason. That's part of our genetics. That's part of our history. It's encoded into us. Things that are familiar are things that we go towards. Things that are not familiar, we have questions of. And how do you understand? How do you just walk across and just have these strangers walking around you, living around you in these cities, and just have a feeling that yes, we're all under this one kind of understanding that I'm going to be safe because we all follow these certain rules and laws. So if you don't have the rule of law, it's a terrible place. So it's good to see that they're saying, look, these are the parameters that are here. We're following these instructions. They're following this way, and you have to also do this so people don't come back and say, okay, you released this, it was illegal, but you want to set up the actual veracity and legality of this information, and I think it's important. So back into it. Based on this assessment, and in light of the significant public interest in the memorandum, the President has authorized the declassification of the memorandum. To be clear, the memorandum reflects the judgments of its congressional authors. The President understands that oversight concerning matters related to the memorandum may be continuing. Though the circumstances leading to the declassification through this process are extraordinary, the executive branch stands ready to work with Congress to accommodate oversight requests, consistent with applicable standards and processes, including the need to protect intelligence sources and methods. Sincerely, Donald F. McGahn, or McGahn? Is it McGahn? Yeah, I think it's McGahn II, Counsel to the President. CC to the Honorable Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Honorable Adam Schiff, Ranking Member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. That's the entry, that's the start of it, and now we're going to get into the memo. Now, it says unclassified here, so if anyone in the US government is watching this, don't keep tabs on me. This is unclassified material, I think it's legal. This is another thing with the current thing that happened in Kenya. There's someone suggested that part of why the opposition may have actually been allowed to actually go out there is as a thing where they know this is going to be breaking the law somehow, and then now you let them go out there and break the law, and then now you can have actual reason to arrest them. So there's this kind of double blind things in this. Is this being released? So like, you know, the kind of situation is like, okay, this classified material comes out, you kind of wonder sometimes, at least I kind of wonder sometimes. I get paranoid sometimes, I'm like, okay, should I actually be reading this? Like, is it legal for me to be reading this? Whatever, it says unclassified. This is online, so I think we're good to go. So into it. So this is an unclassified document on January 18th, 2018. And this is the two HPSCI majority members from HPSCI majority staff. Subject: Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act abuses at the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigations. So the purpose: this memorandum provides members an update on significant facts relating to the committee's ongoing investigation into the Department of Justice, DOJ, and Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and their use of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, during the 2016 presidential election cycle. Our findings, which are detailed below: 1. Raise concerns with the legitimacy and legality of certain DOJ and FBI interactions with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISC. And 2. Represent a troubling breakdown of legal processes established to protect the American people from abuses related to the FISA process. So that's what I was saying before. I think this is about the legality of what happened, and it calls into question the Mueller investigation, if the Mueller investigation was based on the findings of what happened, what's being studied in this memo, then that calls into question why Mueller is actually still doing what he's doing. And about the FISA, I don't know which one I'm going to go with. I might switch back and forth, so just bear with me. Okay, as for the name of this program, I think I'm going to go with FISA. If I say FISA, just bear with me, but I'll try to just go with FISA and go with one and just keep going. Because if I try to read this and then every time I come up to FISA or FISA, I kind of stop because I'm saying both versions. So I just want to get through at least a paragraph and then get to the actual thing. So back into it. Investigation update. On October 21st, 2016, DOJ and FBI sought and received a FISA probable cause order not under Title VII, authorizing electronic surveillance on Carter Page from the FISC. Page is a U.S. citizen who served as a volunteer advisor to the Trump presidential campaign. Consistent with requirements under FISA, the application had to be first certified by the director or deputy director of the FBI. It then required the approval of the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, DAG, or the Senate-confirmed Assistant Attorney General for the National Security Division. So this is just stating who was targeted. Carter Page, who had been mentioned before. I think he's still on news channels talking about things like that. He's no longer, I think, affiliated with the Trump campaign. But as they mentioned here, he's a U.S. citizen. So FISA being used to spy on him is concerning. Back into it. The FBI and DOJ obtained one initial FISA warrant targeting Carter Page and 3 FISA renewals by the FISC. As required by Statute 50 U.S.C. weird legal code here, 1805 D1, a FISA order on an American citizen must be renewed by the FISC every 90 days, and each renewal requires a separate finding of probable cause. Then Director James Comey signed 3 FISA applications in question on behalf of the FBI. The Deputy Director, Andrew McCabe, signed 1. Then DAG Sally Yates, then Acting DAG Dana Bonnet, and DAG Rod Rosenstein each signed 1 or more FISA applications on behalf of the DOJ. So that's just identifying people. Now, if wrongdoing is being found, these are the names that I think are going to be up for question for, are there legal ramifications for what these people did? Due to the sensitive nature of foreign intelligence activities, FISA submissions, including renewals, before the FISC are classified. As such, the public's confidence in the integrity of the FISA process depends on the court's ability to hold the government to the highest standard, particularly as it relates to surveillance of American citizens. However, the FISC's rigor in protecting the rights of Americans, which is reinforced by a 90-day renewals of surveillance orders, is necessarily dependent on the government's production to the court of all materials and relevant facts. This should include information potentially favorable to the target of the FISA application that is known by the government. In the case of Carter Page, the government had at least 4 independent opportunities before the FISC to accurately provide an accounting of the relevant facts. However, our findings indicate that, as described below, material and relevant information was omitted. So this is a thing here. As I mentioned before, the thing is in question is the American people. And this is why I ask people on the left, and I think a lot of people on the left don't really find themselves to be that American. That's why they say, okay, there's no such thing as American culture, being Americanized. Anyone can come here and be American. You don't have to integrate. You don't have to do something like that. And they, I think, don't feel that connection, because when you have somebody saying we're going to make America great again, focusing on America first, they're like, no. You have a president, former President Barack Obama, who's like, America needs to lead from the back. We need to be more humble. We need to be more this and this. We need to be more like other places. I think that appeals to people because they don't really feel that sense like we as Americans are under threat. So I think when it comes out here and people are saying, hey, the problem here is Americans being spied on, they might be like, so what? Who are Americans anyway? But that's the legality situation here. And I think they're setting this up. I think what they're saying here is, in this case, since they're trying to protect Americans as well, if the people who are trying to get that warrant to spy on somebody know information that the judge may show why this person shouldn't be spied on. They're supposed to just give all the information and let the judge or let whoever's going to sign off on the extent of that warrant and extending that warrant to make that decision off of all the material, and not keep away things that they think or may lead the person to say, okay, maybe we shouldn't be spying on this person. Maybe there's no probable cause. So let's get to the points here. 1. The dossier compiled by Christopher Steele, the Steele dossier, on behalf of the Democratic National Committee, DNC, and the Hillary Clinton campaign, formed an essential part of the Carter Page FISA application. Steele was a longtime FBI source who was paid over $160,000 by the DNC and Clinton campaign via the law firm Perkins Cole and research firm Fusion GPS to obtain derogatory information on Trump's ties to Russia. Subheading A, or just A. Neither the initial application in October 2016 nor any of the renewals disclose or reference the role of the DNC, Clinton campaign, or any party/campaign in funding Steele's efforts, even though the political origins of the Steele dossier were then known to senior DOJ and FBI officials. B. The initial FISA application notes Steele was working for a named U.S. person, but does not name Fusion GPS and Principal Glenn Simpson, who was paid by a U.S. law firm, Perkins Coie, representing the DNC, even though it was known by the DOJ at the time that political actors were involved with the Steele dossier. The application does not mention Steele was ultimately working on behalf of and paid by the DNC and Clinton campaign, or that the FBI had separately authorized payment to Steele for the same information. So, with this, and sorry I said Perkins Cole earlier, it is Perkins Coie for both sections in this, but as you can see, you can be reading along on the screen. But right here, I think that's the thing. Oppo research, opposition research. So this is like, hey, let's get this out there, and then you're actually in the incumbent party. You have ties with people in. I mean, she was Secretary of State, so she still had ties to people in the government. So she could have just called somebody, or at least people in the government, people in the current administration didn't necessarily hate her. So there's chances that this could have been a situation where she set something up. She knows these people who would like this kind of information. She knows these people enough. She has relationships with these people to know what kind of information would these people latch onto. What kind of information would bite? What would be the perfect bait to get these people to actually latch onto this story, latch onto this idea? There's plausible deniability for everybody involved, of course. Nothing in here has said is definitive proof that this was the intention of these people. But this is what I'm saying. These are the questions that are being raised, and I think this is what needs to be found out. And these are the questions that I think are going to be coming up from something like this. But I'm almost certain that if this was Trump doing this, because this is the kind of thing that Trump is being accused of doing. He's being accused of getting information, talking with the Russians to get information that's going to be bad on Hillary Clinton, or coordinating with the Russians, collusion with the Russians in order to sway the election in one way. And I don't think it's this odd thinking. How people think Russia is so capable of doing this, even if there was actual collusion with anyone at all. It's beyond me. Well, anyway, back into this. Point 2. The Carter Page FISA application, also cited extensively on a September 23, 2016 Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff, which focuses on Page's July 2016 trip to Moscow. This article does not corroborate the Steele dossier, but it is derived from information leaked by Steele himself to Yahoo News. The Page FISA application incorrectly assesses that Steele did not directly provide information to Yahoo News. Steele has admitted in British court filings that he met with Yahoo News and several other outlets in September 2016 at the direction of Fusion GPS. Perkins Coie were aware of Steele's initial media contacts because they hosted at least one meeting in Washington, D.C. in 2016 with Steele and Fusion GPS where this matter was discussed. A. Steele was suspended and then terminated as an FBI source for what the FBI defines as most serious violations and unauthorized disclosure to the media of his relationship with the FBI in an October 30th, 2016 Mother Jones article by David Korn. Steele should have been terminated for his previous undisclosed contacts with Yahoo and other outlets in September, before the page application was submitted to the FISC in October, but Steele improperly concealed from and lied to the FBI about these contacts. B. Steele's numerous encounters with the media violated the cardinal rule of source handling, maintaining confidentiality, and demonstrated that Steele had become a less than reliable source for the FBI. Now you see, in this one, they're talking about lying to the FBI here, which is something that, who was it? General Flynn, who was, I think, security advisor, the first security advisor in the cabinet of Donald Trump, he was caught up for lying to the FBI and lying to Mike Pence or something about some obscure relationship with meeting, or he said he didn't remember meeting some Russian ambassador or something, and then it turned out that he did, and he was disgraced from that, and there's actually potential court proceedings for that. Now, this is a similar thing people have said with someone like Hillary Clinton. I think they said she lied over the Benghazi thing, and she's had other lies saying, oh, she did not know there's classified material in the emails, and it was found that there's classified material. So lying to the FBI is a very, very serious thing. If you're ever speaking to the FBI, record everything that they're saying if you can, and just stick to saying things that you know, because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, or not even a court of law. Maybe they'll just hush you up, just disappear you. Anyway, I think that's yeah. Back to this memo. So 3. Before and after Steele was terminated. Anyway, now I'm going to be serious here. Before and after Steele was terminated as a source, he maintained contact with DOJ via then Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr, a senior DOJ official who worked closely with the Deputy Attorney Generals Yates and later Rosenstein. Shortly after the election, the FBI began interviewing Orr, documenting his communications with Steele. For example, in September 2016, Steele admitted to Orr his feelings against then-candidate Trump when Steele said he was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. This clear evidence of Steele's bias was recorded by Orr at the time and subsequently in official FBI files, but not reflected in any of the Page FISA applications. A. During this time period, Orr's wife was employed at Fusion GPS to assist in the cultivation of opposition research on Trump. Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research, paid for by the DNC and Clinton campaign via Fusion GPS. The Orr's relationship with Steele and Fusion GPS was inexplicably concealed from the FISC. Again, if you're doing nothing wrong, why are you hiding this? And this is something that people on the left say. A lot of people, not a lot of people on the left, I think a lot of people politically say. Even I occasionally say this. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, all the surveillance stuff. Like, oh, I'm doing stuff online. Why my wife should be worried if people are actually watching what you're doing? If you're doing nothing wrong, why are you hiding it? So this is the kind of situation. Someone will say that, but I think a good many of the people who would say that about increased government surveillance, increased government influence, and knowledge of the things that you're doing in your daily life would also, if they support the Democrats, if they're anti-Trump, will not give these people the benefit of the doubt here. They'll say these people, or maybe they would. They wouldn't say that. They wouldn't call into question their hiding of this information here, and say them hiding this information they're doing it because they know they're doing something wrong. But I think these people clearly knew there was questionable content in what they were doing, and that's why they hid it. I don't consider these people to be idiots. Even someone like Hillary Clinton, I think her situation, seeing the missteps she made in running this election, seeing the missteps a lot of the Democrats have made, I think this is more from just having so much security and so much power and being so embedded, being such of the establishment, that you kind of lose the drive that made you competitive, where you just expect things to happen your way, you take things for granted, and she just underestimated so much and didn't do the due diligence to actually go campaign in certain places, go that extra mile, actually be somewhat more genuine, realize how fed up some people were with the establishment, because she's been establishment for so long. These people have been establishment for so long. So I think they don't understand that, hey, things are changing. And also a simple thing, like I don't think people understand how much the internet and the information age is actually changing the world. Like I'm reading this once classified memo out here in Nairobi, Kenya, reading it out on some online thing. Some of my friends in the chat group just told me, okay, it was finally released. I checked it up. It was in a WhatsApp group. I copied the link from there, put it on my notes thing, then I transferred it to my laptop, got it on my laptop, got OBS up. Now I'm recording the screen. Now I'm getting that link. I got the article here. Now you're listening to it. That's I think something. It's rather insane that that's happening. And we have kids who are just growing up in this life. Like my nephew, 3 years old. That's the world that he's growing up in. But you have to think that some of these people, someone like Hillary Clinton, she grew up in an entirely different universe where politically you could do certain things, you could keep information, you could control narratives in certain ways. So it's kind of like I kind of feel for her in a way where I'm like, that's got to be really weird because I find myself out of sorts in some situations. I travel a lot. Sometimes I'll get in a new situation and be like, oh wow, this is really new. This is not at all what I think it is. Everything I think I know about this situation is entirely different because I've moved to this other place. I'm in this other location. But she hasn't moved. She's been in that place, but the world has moved. So that's something that I think you have to consider with a lot of these people making mistakes that may seem like idiocy, but could just be ignorance. But anyway, back into this. 4. According to the head of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, Assistant Director Bill Priestap, corroboration of the Steele dossier was in its infancy at the time of the initial Page FISA application. After Steele was terminated, a source validation report conducted by an independent unit within the FBI assessed Steele's reporting as only minimally corroborated. Yet in early January 2017, Director Comey briefed President-elect Trump on a summary of the Steele dossier, even though it was, according to his June 2017 testimony, salacious and unverified. While the FISA application relied on Steele's past record of credible reporting on other unrelated matters, it ignored or concealed his anti-Trump financial and ideological motivations. Furthermore, Deputy Director McCabe testified before the committee in December 20th, 2017, that no surveillance warrant would have been sought by the FISC without the Steele dossier information. So that whole financial interest is, if your wife is working for the company that's actually providing the stuff, that company is being paid to do it, if that is looked on favorably and whatever is found useful from it, they get it in, then that company gets more money. If your wife was actually involved in getting that research, she gets more money, so there's financial interest in that. And these are things that need to be disclosed, I think, when you're talking about these kind of things. There may be some bias things. It might not even be a direct bias, but this may be something that you kind of think. Like something like you recuse yourself from these situations. If you're a judge, if you have even the slightest connection to something, you might be, maybe it's in some deal of this hotel versus somebody suing this hotel, and then that hotel happens to be the hotel where you had the reception of your wedding. You can say, okay, I'm going to recuse myself from this because I might have some bias that I just have really good memories in this hotel, so I'm not be able to just be completely unbiased in the situation, just follow the rule of the law in the situation. So there's this undercover bias that people can have, and then there's clear biases where the person has outright said here, which is a sentiment that was shared by a lot of people talking about not wanting Trump to actually be the president earlier on. So those are biases that I think need to be disclosed when you're talking about these kind of situations. And this goes further to the thing, like if somebody knows that, they're going to look at the material you're presenting in a different way. So back into it. Number 5. The Page FISA application also mentions information regarding fellow Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, but there is no evidence of any cooperation or conspiracy between Page and Papadopoulos. The Papadopoulos information triggered the opening of an FBI counterintelligence investigation in late July 2016 by FBI agent Peter Zork. Zork was reassigned by Special Counsel's Office to FBI Human Resources for improper text messages with his mistress, FBI attorney Lisa Page, no known relation to Carter Page, where they both demonstrated a clear bias against Trump, and in favor of Clinton, whom Sork had also investigated. The Sork/Lisa Page texts also reflect extensive discussions about the investigation, orchestrating leaks to the media, and include a meeting with Deputy Director McCabe to discuss an insurance policy against President Trump's election. So this had come up in the news before. These supposed texts came out and people were like, oh, they're just texting together. It's just one text out of like thousands. And as I've said, what is a lot? Because when you have a situation where you have one police interaction out of 1,000 or out of maybe 10,000 that happened that day, police and civilian interaction, police and black people interaction in the United States of America, one of them turns out to be violent, people say that is an example of police brutality. That's an example of racism happening in the United States of America towards the black community. They'll take that one example, that one out of 100,000, and say, look, this is damning of these people. Yet you come to a situation like this where they say, oh, it's one text out of 1,000. This doesn't mean anything. This doesn't mean anything about the person. No, y'all need to stop this. Like I say, like really, just stop it. It's annoying as hell. We're going to do a separate video where I talk about different things. When you're talking about politically, how it starts, like there's all, then it goes like most, no, all, many, most, some, a few, a little, a couple, none. You know, I want the spectrum where they're showing, and then attach percentages. All, of course, is 100%. None would be 0%. Then, like, a couple would literally be like one or two things you can count in your hand. Then you go to like a few, then that would be maybe like 10%. And you go to something like most. Most is 50% plus one, something like that. And then many would be anything below that. And then you can have like. So I mean, it just really bugs me. I have a video where I was asking what is a lot, and that really bugs me. So when someone says, "Oh, like it's just one text out of these," no, it does matter. The context, what the person says, does matter. You know, if you have a situation where you're in a relationship with somebody, they treat you well for 365 days or 364 days of the year, but one day of the year they just come home and start punching you for no reason, without any explanation. That one day, that 1 hour, that 1 minute, or that 10 seconds of that one day does undo or does call into question that entire other 364 days. So don't give me this, oh, it's just 1%, it's just some small kind of thing. It depends on what that thing is. That thing is still important. But yeah, back into this. Oh no, actually that's the end. That's the end of the thing. So I guess it was good to end on that kind of emotion. But yeah, it's what do you guys think about this? As I said, most people will see this and they're like, people actually see it. Okay, most people, as I said with the politically thing, most people is 50% plus one at least. And as I talked about, the 33% on one side, 33% on the other side, both politically and also in interest of this information towards this kind of actual article, will not even read this. So most of the people will not read this, will not come into the contention. I think, as I said, 22% on the left are going to read this and they're going to read an entirely different thing. Think it's completely nothing burger. This material, a lot of these things being talked about in here were things that I had seen politically before. So it's kind of aware that it's just being put in a different way. And people on the right, on the right politically, conservatives and things like that, will hear this and say like, yes, we need this information. We don't really think much is going to come out of this. And then now, I'm worrying about that 11%. Are you in that 11%? Are you one of those people that were on the right politically or were siding with that and kind of thought like, this is a nothing burger, and you're moving more to that other side and you're like, oh, okay, I expected it to be more than this, and now you think it's going to be nothing? Or are you some of the people who expected it to be less than this and you're like, oh, wow, this is actually pretty bad. Like, I can't believe these people were doing this, and this, you think something could happen. But either way, if you guys have listened to this, thanks for listening to this. Like, share, and subscribe. Links below to merchandise store. Also, let me know what you guys think is going to come out of this. And of course, I'll be back with more videos and following this, uncovering. And I might actually go back on that memo thing. Or if there's other memos, I think I kind of like this format. I might do like a memo a month or something. Find other memos to do. So if you guys have other suggestions on content that you'd like to see me make, let me know. They're trying to come up with ideas and develop a schedule with this material. But yeah, like, share, and subscribe, as I said. Links below. You guys can read the document for yourself and get put in whatever FBI or national security agency list that you get put on for reading these kind of things. Hi, guys. Um, goodbye. So thanks again for listening. But just in the hours since I recorded this and when I actually edited it and now I'm uploading it, a lot of other things have occurred. There's already been comments by Donald J. Trump himself. There's word that the Steele dossier itself and other related material may actually end up being declassified and released to the public. So a lot more information. Looking forward to this. I think this is a big moment for a lot of people.